this is Rydo, and we are back to another recording of MTG Arena. Today is January the 10th, Friday. Starting a little late, but that's fine. Slept in, not a big problem there. Since particularly it's Friday, that's not going to affect anything. I've also decided that pretty much I'm not breaking up episodes. That will save me some time. Sometime after about March in 2020, the episodes of Magic Arena will go to Saturday and Sunday, the rebroadcast of episodes. Live streams will not be affected or change at all. And that will give me an extra time slot that might just be empty, so that then there would be 3 time slots with 3 notifications that would come out per day, or I might replace it with a third game pretty quickly. If you're making 3 episodes a week and you're using only 2 of them, within 52 weeks, thus a year, you will have an extra 52 episodes. So every 2 years, I would be pushing this further and further. I don't even expect to play Magic that long, so will probably not be too much of an issue there. If we get into the Marvel game, we'll probably stick with that schedule too. That means that people on the weekend, if they want to rewatch sort of old episodes, they'll be sort of old but not that old episodes of Magic. It'll give them something to do. In general, reruns on YouTube don't make sense, and so you could just go back and watch my old videos, and I'd much prefer people, instead of watching Magic, to actually go through my playlists and watch some of the other games I've covered, because I put a lot of effort into those other games and they've gotten very few views. Moving on, we have a ranked draft Dominaria, which would be Dominaria packs, so that doesn't make sense. We have this Planeswalker Momir, which he looks like he's some kind of underwater character. In this event, you'll track your deck will provide a deck for play consisting of basic lands and Planeswalkers. Use Momir emblem to generate creature tokens. You can cast Planeswalkers normally as spells and discard them to activate the Momir emblem. So this is some kind of emblem card that I don't know if this really exists or not. And it would give you 1,000 XP plus another 1,000 XP plus 1,000 XP. So then the question becomes, this ends in 5 days. Will this be around in 5 days, or is this just 3 more opportunities to get the last bits? Perhaps they're just being really, really generous. Let's see. And just trying to be really careful that everybody gets what they want before the new expansion happens. I saw a YouTube video talking about there's like booster packs and then draft packs of cards, and the booster packs are a new thing, and that they've been like a little bit more expensive. There's a historic challenge starting in 22 hours. I'm trying to see when this would end, and that bit of information is not being shown unless it's hidden behind something down here, which I doubt it is, because there's an overlay program right there that, well, actually I can just look at the screen on the recording and see there's nothing there. So 2,500 gold is roughly $3. So you're paying about $1 for 1,000 XP, which then pays about $1 for uncommon cards, which probably is more expensive than it's worth. And yeah, there's nothing here that indicates when this is going to end. So I guess the strategy we'll have to adopt is we'll keep an eye on this. If it says it's going to end before the new rotation comes in, then we'll reevaluate. If it says it's going to end after that, then we'll reevaluate. This has been a particularly ineffective week as far as playing Magic, since we are at Friday and we still haven't gotten the 15th victory. But I think that is kind of where this is going to boil down to also. And we need to play blue, so let's hop into a game. Feels like we lost a style of gameplay here. And it scrolled down, yeah. Interesting. There's just a ton of padding at the top there. So yeah, that's pretty much where I think it's going to boil down to. Is I've had the first expansion 2 months or so of just kind of relearning. This is probably too much land, but I'll take it. Spending a lot of time on playing Magic and not a lot of time doing anything else YouTube related. I've also been spending a lot of time programming my electric signage, which I'll talk about in a second, as just kind of a progress report that I am not just completely wasting my life away. And small bits of time still trying to get my server to fix its RAID array, which I had to reboot the thing, or I chose to reboot the thing, and that just restarted everything, but very possibly fixed some problems too. So I'm kind of happy with it. Yeah. I have hit the point where yesterday I actually had to start uploading videos. I literally recorded 30 to 40 episodes of Hearthstone, not Hearthstone, but Magic Arena, which at that point, okay, I want this, because I think this is good. I want this. I think we can get rid of that. So that's draw 3, then scry 3. Not scry 3, then draw 3. That is how it's written. So yeah, there's definitely I've hit the point where my SSD for the video graphics is full, and I've just got to upload more videos. So that's what I'm going to be spending the significant amount. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna be putting my effort into, is uploading videos. And yeah, I also probably need to start recording software, playing some other games, and get back into the habit. As for my digital signage, I wasted an entire day trying to set up what is called a captive portal. A captive portal is where you create a network. In this case, it would be a wireless access point that, at least for the first visit, requires you to go to a login page and and confirm, like agree to terms and conditions, maybe type in a password, things like that before you can go to any other place. This is accomplished in part by the DHCP on the network setting up sending all traffic to DNS servers, and the DNS servers being programmed to return a certain command. Let's see. Now the problem with my hardware, and why this took an entire day and I nearly gave up on it, is that the software and examples aren't well written. There's about 5 different, very different software header files that, or examples using different software and header files that I found. So I was getting very conflicting examples, none of which were really working for my hardware. Possibly in part due to me integrating it with a larger subset of code and moving things around in the wrong place. Possibly just because it wasn't working. So I gave up on it, came back the next day, decided to try again, and on the second day, after sleeping on it, was able to get it to work with some modifications. 2 major things is that the Wi-Fi on my hardware doesn't seem to work and seem to just reboot and crash, which is, rebooting and crashing is not what you really expect and not what you want for any software. There's a difference between it not working or doing something unexpected and it just straight up crashing. That's a bad scenario as far as programming. And then the second problem is that the access point software is programmed out of standard, for lack of a better term. It is telling the DHCP server, which it handles or tries to handle all of this itself, but it's telling it that there's only one DNS server. It's keeping it short and sweet, when by default at least Android phones and everything I've ever seen wants at least 2 DNS servers. My DDWRT router setting could have 3 DNS servers, but most softwares assume a minimum of 2 and a maximum, if you go through a lot of hoops, of probably, I would imagine, as many as 255. While in most scenarios offering and setting up one DNS server is fine, except for on Android, they just assume that the second DNS server is Google's DNS, which would be 8.8.4.4, their primary DNS being 8.8.8.8. I think this might actually do something. Nope, didn't. Alright. So what happens when you connect a Android phone, or at least my Android phone, I only have really one to test with, to the captive portal, is it still assumes 8.8.4.4 works and should work, and that there will be a legitimate response from either the first DNS server that my device offers or the second one. And if it doesn't get a legitimate response from either of those, because the access point isn't actually connected to the internet, then it just let me do that. Nope. You have to have 2. In default, what that happens is if you're typing like google.com, particularly places that you've likely already been and have a previous DNS entry for, it just on Android phones assumes that you're disconnected and it will try again later. It doesn't look for...
I'm always a step ahead.
For anything. It doesn't ask the DNS server for a new location and a new IP address. So it would just say like offline page not found, which is not what should happen on a captive portal. It should pop up all responses anywhere to the one web page. This is important in a setup scenario because you want to ensure, regardless of what garbage some end user is typing in, they're going to end up on the setup page. They're going to be able to enter their settings and move forward down the process of doing an initial setup. If it says offline, then there's a very high chance that some percentage of people are going to just immediately say it doesn't work, or try and contact some customer service and waste a lot more time and energy simply because they typed it wrong. You would generally not can I not block? How many cards do I have left? Like 42. It'd be a long time before.
No one likes a bully.
I don't know what happened there, that these guys got buffed. That was a 5. This somehow did more than 5 damage. So the trick to finish a long story I found was to have the DNS offer have the DNS the DHP offer the DNS server of 8.8.4.4 as the first DNS, and by doing that you could allow for your, let's see, can we play that? No. So what it does effectively is it tells them both DNS servers are 8.8.4.4 because the second one that can't be offered by my hardware will be at least on Android phones and probably other phones too, since DNS Google is probably the default DNS for most. That kind of fixes the problem. It's a kludgy temporary workaround for a lack of an ability that should just exist. Like, it really shouldn't. It's just slightly above my willingness to go in there and change the code so that it it offers two DNS servers through the DHCP instead of just one. But that really would be the solution, is to just say, no, all the DNS servers. Now, I would set 4 of them all up to the exact same IP address just to make sure. But it does make for a nicer solution. When a captive portal works on Android, at least, it pops up a login page as soon as you connect to the Wi-Fi. You don't have to go to a browser. You don't have to type in an IP address. That'll still be the backup instructions, but there's not actually a lot of reason that you actually need to do that. Man, I really don't have that many artifacts, so this actually is a pretty useless card. So yeah, that's mostly what I got done. I did some research and I started the beginnings of setting up a over-the-air or through the internet update software, which is mostly handled by a support header file, so it really won't be a lot of hand programming. There's definitely a split between the coding that I'm having to do to handle the calendar that is kind of from scratch, and a lot of other functions that would have a lot more broader use and have already been done. So there is a certain level of maturity in this software libraries that are being supported, but not a significant amount, frankly. It still is very development and prototype stage stuff, whereas if you were just programming something to run on a Intel or AMD CPU and just a standard PC, you would have a lot more support, and you could do something a lot fancier and a lot nicer and a lot easier. So yeah, the internet's over-the-air thing scares me. I think by default it probably shouldn't be on, but then if it's not on by default, then the software will just never update, which probably is fine. You know, if it works, don't fix it type mentality. So yeah, I think by default I'll set it up so it's not on by default, and ideally both I want to have a auto install settings and an auto update that goes through the default gateway of someone's network. That way, since these are digital signages, since the idea here is this is something that would be at a big office or a university or school or something like that, if they set up their default gateway to port forward all traffic to their own server, and their own server has their own settings in it, that would be great. Although that does then at a certain point get down to there needs to be some kind of sticker that is unique to each device. Effectively, this is doing a low-end attempt at a network boot, a pre-install environment setup. But if I have those on by default and they just go through the default gateway, that shouldn't route to any internet site, which is my main concern, is that a internet site could be hijacked, the code could be changed. There is on the hardware, but not on the software side, a way to enable a level of encryption on everything, and that is probably something that should be integrated into Phase 2, where the updates would be digitally signed and everything would be encrypted on the chip, so it would be a lot harder to pull things off the chip. It may not actually be too hard depending on whether or not a government agency is trying to hack your code or not, though, to pull the information even if it was encrypted. And at a certain point you're just spending a lot of energy around the idea that you can actually have a secure environment on an embedded device when probably can't handle the levels of encryption that would be needed. Like, it's very possible you would just never be able to have the like elliptical curve encryption set that you would want to have to make sure something is really secure at a very high bit rate. The CPU would just not be able to handle it. The amount of RAM wouldn't be able to handle it. There's probably some kind of middle ground where you just encrypt it a little bit for safety's sake. And at a certain point, that almost would be like, alright, I need to hire somebody to rewrite the code, or continue to work on the code, to make sure it's encrypted, and just hire a security professional. It would require that my device is just so crazily successful, or I would have to be chasing after some like government contract or something that I'm not sure I would be able to follow their standards even. So a lot of that's just like, don't try to run before you can walk type stuff. A version 1 of the code that I have is more than enough for the target market that I'm planning it to sell on. Alright. All I'm doing right now, by the way, is just playing blue cards. Just trying to get the daily quest done. The strategy on this blue deck is crazy and would probably never happen. It involves me running out of cards, and it would involve them realizing that I was trying to run out of cards. And I kind of wish that was still alive. That would have been a very useful card to have on the field. It is definitely noticeable in my programming that I've been avoiding going back and dealing with the networking issue, the 303 redirect errors that I was having a lot of trouble with. Maybe I've learned quite a bit in the past week or so that won't be really much of a problem to deal with when I get back to it. That's the general hope, is if in programming, particularly in programming and learning a new environment of programming and the new types of libraries and codes, if I do something different, I'll maybe pick up some tricks and figure out my mistake. But yeah, I need to go back and do that. I need to go back and continue to work on connecting to the calendar. I'm still putting the Bluetooth function where it would act as a Bluetooth headset and not really play the audio on anything, just pretend like it was playing the audio, so that those devices would just be silent during a meeting. Let's see. Put this on the field.
Love a good puzzle. It's a matter of give and take.
See, that's 34 more cards. Yeah, I'm not getting anywhere with that. But yeah, lots of programming still needs to be done. The Bluetooth in particular is a whole different standard. It's a whole different bit of hardware. It's really about sending the right signals, not getting the code right, and figuring out what message to send. Like at the end of the day, it really is just a small handful of it is really just a small handful of text that is going to be sent, and I just need to figure out what the small handful of text is. I guess. Don't really need that. Don't really need that. Do I really only have like 4 cards? I didn't even play that right because I'm just gonna do this. So I did not scry correctly. Anyways. Guess if I can just defend. Maybe I could win here, but not really. Let's see. We have some leftover news, so it probably is a decent idea to start covering the video game news at this point. There is one bit of drama. MXR, who I've only known as doing his Skyrim mod channel, MXR Mods, Skyrim and Fallout mod channels, which I watched a speedrun of the Fallout anthology, and honestly I probably should play the Fallout series and just purchase whatever I don't have and work my way towards the other issue. Like, if I control Janus Planeswalker, which I don't. So MXR, which is basically one guy and his girlfriend, who I think is his girlfriend, had a second channel where they were doing the H3H3 thing, for lack of a better thing. They were going on Reddit, finding videos, and commenting on them in a way that they certainly would argue is fair use, and I would certainly argue is fair use. And apparently there's been a company that's been sending them bills for like $1,500 for videos that they allegedly own, and I'm just gonna leave it at allegedly for the moment. And at some point MXR actually paid them, and because they actually paid them once, they started sending more bills. So like $1,500 for a YouTube video that almost certainly isn't making $1,500 in ad revenue, let alone the fact that if they did actually try to sue them and win a judgment for copyright infringement, they would only get actual damages, and they'd have to prove actual damages, which would probably be significantly less than $1,500 as far as I understand it. But because they've been paying them, they got labeled in my mind as a sucker and willing to pay, and so the company kept sending them bills, and then started just straight up sending threatening letters and effectively extorting them for money, doing the whole copyright strike thing. And the proper thing for them to do would have been to never pay them. The second proper thing to do is to kind of know the risk of their job and not have a YouTube channel that is just them looking and commenting on Reddit videos. But yeah, fighting those strikes in particular, talking with YouTube, maybe raising a big stink about it the first time it happened, would have been a lot smarter than already having paid the money. And I don't know if that would really affect their legal defense in any way, but it certainly doesn't help their pocketbook to have yet have an instance in which they were willing to pay. Alright, so we can block that. We can block that. We can block that. We can block that. We can block that with that one. And then that lets me block that one with that one. And that one with that one. This is a great example, I guess, of where the mobile version of Magic Arena would have to be reprogrammed, is when you've got 8 characters on either side. So yeah, a bit of controversy there, that they're in a bad spot. They're getting extorted by most people's opinion that I've seen. This is kind of a hot off the presses news thing, and yeah, I don't know what else to really say there. Let's swap out now from playing Azure Skies, which sucks, to playing Out for Blood, which, let's see, I'm gonna be kind of careful here. Like, if in theoretically playing 15 games and getting 15 wins, we play the 1 white card in this 5 times, we'll get this daily quest. Otherwise, we'll just play 1 game at the very end of white and of a white deck and then get it really quickly. That is more, I guess, also a YouTube story than it is a video game story. MXR, as a YouTuber, does play Skyrim mods, mostly adult Lovers Lab Skyrim mods, and occasionally some adult Fallout mods. But there's seems like a lot less interest in Fallout 4 mods. So yeah, but I am slightly inspired by, after watching a 2-hour speed run of going through all of the main Fallout games, including Fallout New Vegas, particularly Fallout 1 and 2, as it was speedrun, doesn't seem like it would be too long of a series. Like, it really was only taking them 20 minutes to speedrun it, whereas I imagine, let's say that turns into 10 hours of gameplay if you play it legitimately. And certainly with the Fallout series too, even like the Skyrim series, there are definitely some main story plots that I may have missed or been locked out of when I covered Skyrim. And they didn't do the DLC on Fallout 3 or anything like that, so I think that is pretty much how that would go. And every time I see Fallout 4, I feel bad because someone gifted me Fallout 4 and then I didn't get around to playing it. It would be a great excuse to play it and try and remember back on like The Witcher and Witcher 3 and compare that. Those are particularly different styles of games. And playing the Fallout series and then potentially playing Cyberpunk would be an interesting comparison also. Now, I'm playing ranked here, so I actually want to win. So I'm not going to do anything crazy. Just going to hold on to things. First we have a game. Not even next. First we have a game on Steam called Grim Clicker, which looks like a clicker game with maybe a little bit of polish on it. Seems like your enemy is always running to the right, and there's a lot of level up things. Since I'm playing a Girl Drift on my phone,
do you see the benefits of peace?
That's definitely a clicker game. This is free to play with in-app purchases, English and Russian. There's really no reason to show off or review a clicker game, though. You, in the description alone, know what it is. Alright. So let's go after this guy.
The pain only strengthens my resolve.
Let's see. Loyalty counters. The Girl Drift is... It does definitely has some breaks in it where you kind of have to just take a day, or at least take 12 hours before you come back to it to get enough fish cakes as it is to the currency to upgrade things. But it really does feel like within about a week I'm going to have done everything that can be done there, and then it is just going to become a infinite continuance of the same thing over and over again. I bet it feels like the numbers are just going to go up and up and up and up. And there doesn't really feel like there's much of a burden. And it definitely feels like the game is trying pretty hard to ensure that that you pay up front very quickly if you're going to pay, instead of potentially taking a while. So they want to get the money out of you rather quick for even a free-to-play game.
A moment. I will be fine.
Right. This might be kind of crazy to be able to put loyalty counters, which I assume are
Now
what these
do
are,
you see the benefits
on
of
all your other
peace?
planeswalkers. But it's probably pretty difficult for that to turn into a really great strategy. This guy's at 26. If I can get this next turn and then get 10 creatures on the field, that would do 20 plus 10 damage, that would win. I probably don't even need 10 on the field. 9, 18, 27 would, yeah, 18, 9 on the field would work. 8 would on the field would work. So, yeah, 8, I believe, if I'm doing the math right, would be the minimum number of creatures I would need. 9, 10. And that's assuming I don't get another Vindictive Vampire on the field. Which I don't have to make that assumption now. So I'm just gonna play this. So we've got it. Victory. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So 8 tripled is 24, leaving me with 1 minus 10. Meanwhile, 24 health here. So at this point, it's like, speed it up. Come on, just speed this whole process up. We don't need to see all of this. There's kind of no reason why. It's like as if he's clicking the pass button one by one, which he may be actually doing. Is this an attempt to irritate me into conceding? Well, that's not gonna work. $35. So we've ranked up now to silver tiers 2, which I think you can't fall backwards on that. I think maybe you can. I wonder what the 125 experience that I have right now, or whatever amount I have left over when mastery shifts over, if we lose that, or if that gets applied to the next expansion, or what. We'll probably lose it. Moving on, Gamasutra, the Sony Interactive Entertainment boss. The quote biggest, more unique PS5 features have yet to be revealed. He's basically teasing things, trying to probably pull the hate off the fact how lazy the PS5 logo looks. With as lazy as that logo looks, I kind of wonder if maybe they do a surprise name change and it's actually not the PS5, but then they would look like a liar, so I don't know why they would bother to even say, like, why bother to even say that it's going to be the PS5 if it really isn't going to be the PS5. That wouldn't make a lot of sense. Biggest, more unique features. is if Sony's gonna try and announce or release a new like upgrade of a like 8K or 16K UHD Blu-ray, something that is just kind of completely incompatible and not playable in any current Blu-ray player, where I feel like a lot of the 4K Blu-rays and things right now do have, at the minimum, some way in which they can be played. Like, if that somehow isn't the case for a new Blu-ray, that would be a big mistake. Even if they were going to release a new standard format, probably isn't really worth that much, frankly, because with the exception of niche media, like anime on Blu-ray still is kind of a thing that a lot of older anime fans will want, because they've seen things come off of streaming services and they actually want to own and see that really high level artsy things on Blu-ray. Those types of things, like Schindler's List, for instance. It's probably something that will always be on sale, but also it's probably something you would want in your library if you're a videophile and actually want to have a local library, which I would argue a lot of people don't at this point want that. So you use this Frogify on the wrong guy. Would have done a lot better to not have that. Okay. So we've got this. We'll do Taste of Death. Alright, well, sacrifice these 3 characters. And then we'll put this back on the field. And then we'll put this back on the field. And then we'll attack here. And there's practically nothing he can do, because as long as I kind of stop attacking with this and this is on the field, if I attack with these others and they die, it will do 3 damage. Bring it back up. Ah, that's a blue. Next, go and attack with that. And we'll attack with one of these. And he'll decide which of either he cares about. So pretty much have a victory next turn. Unless he can... Yeah, unless he can heal 1, maybe at that point. This, and this. Attack. And yeah, think we've got it. Like, he can attack here, here, and here all he wants. But that's not gonna stop me from winning. I guess if the PlayStation 5 went deep with VR, that might be something. If they tried to beat Microsoft on some sort of specs, that might be slightly interesting. But we've kind of seen nothing impressive. It feels like there's a lot of trumped up claims here, but there's not a lot of reason why you would actually believe them. And depending on what kind of games you want, I would say that the PlayStation 4 is probably the loser of this generation compared to Microsoft, and it really was Sony's to lose because Microsoft, remember, started with a horrible sales pitch of always online DRM and games discs being nothing but really install discs, and they had to kind of backtrack all of that and then slowly introduce a lot of those concepts in a more acceptable way. Like the Games Pass effectively is what they were pushing, but they sold it in a very different fashion. Meanwhile, the Sony's big claim to fame has always been its relationship with Japanese game developers and having Japanese games and having unique exclusives. And I would say the PlayStation 4 didn't really have that many. Like, off the top of my head, I can't really think of anything that is such a big loss that people that I would ever even think about getting a used PlayStation 4. I'd get it if it was cheap for a Blu-ray player, and that's about it. They didn't have, like the PS3 had, they didn't have like any Uncharted games that I know even came out for the PS4. There's a couple of like remasters of their classic games, like The Last Guardian, which isn't a big enough thing to be a system seller. There definitely were things on the PS3 that were a lot better and a lot more interesting, and those are just not there when I think about the PS4. And in all fairness, the Xbox One didn't have a lot of exclusives or system sales either. Everything has gone very much to the factor of it, either it's a Nintendo game or it's a multi-platform game, including PC. The PC has clearly been the winner of this generation better than it has been in any previous generation.
We thrive when we support one another.
The only big shift would be if like Nintendo things were allowed on PC. And I guess if the PlayStation 5 did somehow secure some kind of contract with Nintendo, that would be crazy. But that would be a big announcement if all of a sudden Switch games also worked in a PlayStation 5. That would be really weird. But then I don't know how the controllers would work on that. It'd probably be fine, but I don't think that's gonna happen. I think with Sony Interactive Entertainment being run out of California, you have a bunch of people who are new and think they're gonna do great things, and their head and ego is inflated, and what they're actually gonna offer is gonna be majorly disappointing. Let's see. Well, can't attack or block alone. Just do no attacks this turn. Moving on, OpenCritic has an article. The Pokemon Sword and Shield announcement happened, and it's getting an expansion pass for the first time, which I think we already knew. 2 new expansions in the coming month, in addition to new areas to explore and gym leaders to battle. The incoming content will address many fans' biggest problem with the game by adding over 200 more Pokemon to the roster. The first expansion, Isle of Armor, will arrive in June, while the follow-up, the Crown of Tundra, will hit digital stores in the fall. Both expansions will continue the storyline of the main game. In the first expansion, players will travel to the island region and train under Mustard, a mentor of Leon's, blah blah blah. Let's just skip and see if there's anything more to be said here. No. So they're adding characters back, which is kind of good. But it very well might be a little too late. I could definitely see that. People just not being super happy with adding only 200 when that still, I think, means that a few Pokemon would be excluded. None of these articles I've seen have said that the expansion is adding back all the Pokemon except for like Mew or Mewtwo, which might make sense if you were just gonna say no Mew, no Mewtwo.
Is the best cure.
None of the stories I've seen have phrased it that it's adding back all the previous generation Pokemon, so it's not like they're following any rule or rhyme there, which implies to me at least that there is some percentage of Pokemon that came out in this latest version that really were just copy and paste as far as their abilities. Probably not their art style or name or anything like that, but as far as their abilities, it does seem like there are some copy and paste reprints effectively of Pokemon, and that's why those are not coming back. It's because they don't want to make it obvious that one Pokemon is exactly the same as the other Pokemon, which you see in Magic the Gathering too. It's just reprints of the exact same card that do the exact same thing, happening over and over again. Alright, well, I think I've got this guy now. He defended, and
find your inner strength.
Now we can take him out. The other announcement, it seemed like there was really only 2 announcements, was a Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Rescue Team DX, which is a Switch remake of the 2006 game, of which I have no knowledge of. I guess it's probably more of a dungeon crawler type game. Seems like there are no humans in it. Seems like it probably is just kind of doing a more simplified RPG, even compared to Pokemon, which was pretty much a simplified RPG in the first place. Okay. So we've got that. Let's go ahead and hit this. I think we've pretty much can win. And I guess he was right, because he let me win and conceded. We're getting victories, but we're not getting any of those white cards, but that's fine. I'd rather just play a little ranked here and get some victories and end the weekend, which will probably be the last thing I do. Like, this will probably be the last Magic I play until Monday, in all fairness, on top of having to schedule videos, which is not super hard with my new setup. It's not as hard as it has been in the past, at least. Man, I gotta keep this. That sucks. But scheduling and uploading, certainly it can be a problem, and just making sure things upload right. Also, probably is the first time in the new year that I've actually tried to upload any videos, so if something didn't go right because YouTube decided to change something, I wouldn't be surprised. So yeah, I plan on spending the weekend just programming. How much more time am I going to spend on this project? It's going faster than you might think, but it is also taking time. Like, there's definitely no denying that part. It is taking up time. But yeah, I'm actually shockingly closer to finishing it than I should be when you consider this is programming projects could easily go on for an extremely long amount of time. You just are constantly tinkering with things, constantly changing value settings, trying to improve on it. Working with an embedded device, you're limited to a certain amount of pixels on the screen, a certain amount of RAM, so you can't really do a bunch of feature creep on it. Also, I'm kind of just limited mentally. Like, if anybody has any ideas of what a digital sign for a conference room or office should say, what kind of information it should pull, what kind of things it should do, definitely let me know in the comments, because it really is, without the Bluetooth working, it is a one-trick pony. It connects to a calendar and it shows the events of the calendar in one form or factor. Maybe I can get it to tell the time without it wasting a lot of battery and ruining the screen because it redraws the screen too often. Maybe I can get it to do something different, but that's kind of it. Like, it really is limited because I just don't have any better thoughts. But yeah, that's what I'll probably be working on, is uploading and programming, and maybe within a week, 2 weeks, maybe 3 more programming would be my reasonable estimate on how much more time I'm gonna spend on it. I've been sourcing like packaging to sell it, and yeah, it's not as crazy expensive as you'd think, but it is still kind of crazy expensive. It would probably cost to put something in a plastic blister pack. Probably costs about 30 cents extra. To put a security tag on it that would set off an alarm, that probably costs another 30 cents to just have the sticker. And I'm not sure if that's even a price that, if this was a product that was ever sold in the storefront, would be something I would do, or if that's just something that they would have to do, or would want to do, the store would want to do. And frankly, it's probably a high enough priced object that depending on the store, they'd want to either lock it behind a case or put one of the very big black wire strap things that they use nowadays over. So yeah, I've been looking at some of that. I'm thinking about the part that I need the 3D print. I would still need to model that, and I'm not sure I 100% actually need the 3D printed. I might be better off instead using a... I shouldn't have attacked with that. That was dumb. Well, that was stupid. I guess he wanted to die. Yeah, the part that I could 3D print might work better as a piece of metal.
I seek a path to
Like,
peace.
if it was just stamped metal, if I got a
Friendship
metal
soothes
fabricator
the
to
soul.
stamp something and then deburr it and then like powder coat it, that might work better. That might be cheaper than 3D printing something. Probably not, though. I imagine the price of metal actually is higher than 3D printing something, and then 3D printing something eventually to replace that with injection molding something. Like, yeah. Yeah, I imagine that is the case. And I don't need it to be metal for any real reason. So, yeah. I'm looking at the pricing, looking at parts, potential reduction of costs, things like that. Trying to actually run this like a real business and get it. Oh man, I did that wrong. I wish I could undo that. Can we undo? Nope. We cannot. Alright, well then, no attack. Moving on with video game news, the UK retailer Game likely to close 40 stores amid a quote challenging retail market. So GameStop having trouble in the United States, Game having trouble in the UK. There, frankly, in the West is not any video game store, boutique store like that is doing great. Kind of to no one's surprise, online sales are continuing to be either direct online sales through eShops or online sales through places like Amazon.com are proving to be the better way to buy games. And as parents, at least in the United States, in my experience, in my understanding, as they have less and less money, they're just not letting kids go into video game stores, and thus there's less of an opportunity that they would even get any sales because of that. Right. So I could activate this now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6, 12, 18 plus that 10 should win. So I hope this is right. Don't see any reason why it wouldn't be right. Seriously? Oh man. I screwed up. I screwed up. Bad. Odds are low that I'll be able to get this to work. Odds are very low. I messed up real bad here.
I did not start this fight, but I will finish it. Vampirism is a useful trait.
So he's got 4, 8, 12. Which gets him up to 34. Which is... This deserves an oops. So I'm down to 1. Here we have a game on Steam called Election Simulator, which is just a low effort asset flip game that is also trolling with the name, where you're just running around attacking people and throwing money. It's $5.39, English only. I wouldn't be surprised if this is some kind of troll game in an attempt to influence confidence in elections, which, let's face it, the confidence in elections, depending on what country you're in, is probably shouldn't be that high, but it should be something that you are involved with anyways, because let's put it this way: if you go and all your friends go and everybody you know goes and votes against somebody, let's say Saddam Hussein is, I guess, a good example. If everybody in Iraq votes against Saddam Hussein, and then it is reported that Saddam Hussein wins with 99% votes, then you know your election's a fraud. At that point, you should take to the streets and demand real democracy and probably have a revolution. But if nobody bothers to go and vote, and then Saddam Hussein wins with 90% of the votes, maybe he did because you didn't bother to vote, so you don't really know if that's the case or not, and none of your friends know because none of your friends went to vote. So, barring other risks, you should probably be involved in the process to at least be able to self-evaluate how legitimate that process is. Cynicism is probably one of the major killers of democracy in the first place, and maybe other arguments about democracy not being the best. It probably isn't the best. It's just, to quote someone else, the best we've found so far. So yeah, we personally, I don't think these kind of troll joke games need to be on Steam because they're not good games in the first point, and they're trying to push cynicism as a political message in the second point. I mean, one thing you can say for all the SJWs and just regular people that voted for Hillary Clinton in the United States is they were the people that legitimately went and voted, had a somewhat fair response when they lost. Like, I can't blame them for being upset that they lost when they put a lot of effort and actually did go and vote. Whereas I can blame people that in their minds and on their Twitter feed supported Hillary but didn't bother to vote themselves. Even if your candidate doesn't win, you should be somewhat proud that you were active in the process. And I would argue you learn from that experience and try to improve the candidate you support, or improve pick a better candidate, or tell the candidate that you support to do better. I mean, I would argue that Hillary Clinton in particular really lost the election single-handedly herself, but with the help of just being by being unlikable, with the help of a lot of people around her being unlikable too, and a lot of people around her saying she is unlikable. It really, I think, did a lot of ways boil down to a popularity contest. But that's talking about politics, and I definitely don't want to talk about politics. Moving on, TechRaptor has an article here. Sega Ages Shinobi and Fantasy Zone arrive in January of 2020. I remember playing this game at like an arcade, Shinobi, where you're throwing ninja stars. Fantasy Zone doesn't look like something I've ever seen before. They will be on the Nintendo eSwitch shop, I guess. And that's the only places where you can get Sega Ages. Alright, what do we want to do? Attack with this, I guess? TechCorruptor has an article here. Steam soundtrack sale is coming in advance of new functionality. So, if you ever wanted to buy soundtracks, it may soon be the right point to buy that. This also will let you buy soundtracks too without owning the base game with the new functionality. So let's see. Customers can now purchase soundtracks without purchasing the base games. Customers can now download soundtracks without downloading the base game. Customers can browse and manage their owned and downloaded soundtracks directly from their Steam library. Customers can configure a Steam music directory where all soundtrack content will be placed rather than having it located in subdirectories of game content. Developers can upload and manage their soundtrack content entirely through the partner site without using Steam commands, which I guess is a command line thing that we're having used. Developers can sell soundtracks where the base game itself is not available for sale on Steam, which does open the door to potentially twice as many things being on sale on a day-to-day basis of Steam, because I could see a lot of Japanese developers that never want to put their game on sale, instead putting their soundtracks on sale. I could also see a lot of Japanese developers never putting their soundtracks on sale because of licensing issues there. So there's kind of a couple of different ways it could go. See what if anybody wants to bite on that, or if it's just gonna let me attack. What this doesn't change as far as this new feature on soundtracks though is it doesn't reach into a game and allow the developers to remove music that's in the game by default. That would still have to be done by a patch, and that probably doesn't open up any door where you sell a soundtrack and then they lose the license to that soundtrack, and then they patch the soundtrack to remove music from your hard drive. That probably isn't happening. Probably if you are selling a soundtrack of your game, you've got the rights for all eternity, or you just remove that soundtrack and release a different one. Well, I should have been attacking, I think. Let's just do no attacks. And then in return, this guy's flying. And why does this guy have flying? This is why he has flying. Just go ahead and have to block. I've lost next turn, sure. Only thing I could hope to do is to tap something here, and then all attack here, and then him decide to defend against this for no real reason. See, next game we have on Steam is called Soviet Jump Game. It looks like it's a troll 8-bit platforming game of no real interest. Early access, free to play, and a whole bunch of other things you can buy in DLC. English only with in-app purchases. Yeah, right. Not something making it to the follow list. Let's see. Gamatsu has an article here. Doom and Doom 2 have been updated with add-ons. 60 frames per second support, more, and a PC version was released. Add-ons include John Romero's Sigil, which I thought they were going to support in a different way. So, they've updated the July 29th release versions of Doom and Doom 2 for the PS4, Xbox One, and Switch, iOS, and Android with various new features, including add-ons, 60 frames per second support, and more. Both games also are available today via the PC, via the Bethesda.net launcher. So not the Steam versions. But also, in all fairness, I believe the July 2019 release of Doom was the bad release of Doom that required always online DLC for really no reason, where they wanted you to log into that Bethesda group. They added also aspect ratio, quick save, quick loads, level select, weapon carousel, new split screen HUD, random sound effects pitch toggle. They've changed the health graphics. The pill has been changed into a green pill, making it closer to the original appearance. So it seems like Bethesda really is just wasting energy remaking an incredibly old game when they should be working on Doom Eternal, and there was really no need to re-release Doom with new features. They also have changed the Wolfenstein secret level, which I didn't even know existed. Enemies in the Wolfenstein level have been restored to the original DOS release. The original textures and enemy audio have been re-added to the level, but with censored references removed. Probably Nazi references removed. Let's see. Also fixed some issues, about 4 issues. Seems really ridiculous, and it also feels kind of silly that Doom Sigil is just being added in when it was being promoted as this weird standalone expansion to Doom, the original Doom games. But yeah, whatever. It's still probably not the version I'd want to play. Gamma Sutra has a blog here analyzing the top Steam tags, which, let's see if we get just a basic list here of the top Steam tags. Oh, this image is super small. Let's see if I can... see if I can zoom this in some more. This can't be the top Steam tags. This must be just a list of them. Like heist, wrestling, submarine, Warhammer 40k. Nah, that's not the top tags. That's just a list of tags. There's a highlighted part in this blog that says there are particularly tagged micro-genres that sell well, but only because competition was extremely limited. For example, wrestling, motorbike, baseball, and submarine. Particular tags hint at types of gameplay that resonate. Look at crafting as an example. Some genres do way better than others. CRPG, high cost to develop, lots of content needed but high reward, and intensive hack and slash, which sounds at a glance looks to be very haphazardly tagged set of games, so there's maybe not much there. City builder, yeah. Some of the biggest genres are frighteningly crowded. First person shooter, platformer, side scroller, all great examples of like things that are tags that everybody uses. And then here's it. Let me just quote here. Nobody knows anything / nobody learned anything new here. That's a ridiculous way to end your article, and inherently this becomes a problem with Gamasutra, and it's probably just more of a thing where I should swear off reading blogs on Gamasutra in particular, because it really is just gibberish that gets put out by game devs that they're not market analysts, and a market analyst would have to be the person that would read into that kind of information and speak with any kind of authority. So yeah, that was pretty much just a waste of time. Nor was any of that information particularly helpful, or accurate in my opinion, because the best selling tag almost certainly is visual novels, because they're high price and low effort, and their fan base is, well, a niche fan base, very devoted, and will buy a lot of them. Gamasutra has another blog here, for instance. The number, or at least they're claiming this to be in news, the number of Steam releases remained relatively flat from 2018 to 2019. So 8,400 new releases is only a slight increase from 2018's 8,195. But remember, 2018 was when they opened the floodgates, and so it was in 2017 6,322, and before that year it was 4,400 titles in 2016. So in 4 years they went from 4,400 to nearly double that, and inherently I'm fairly certain that Steam played a major role in why there weren't as many releases on their storefront. They stopped letting scammers put garbage games in the tunes of thousands and thousands of games on their storefront, and they started doing just the smallest amount of curation, and as soon as they did that, we've seen a decent amount. And when I think about 2019, every single week, every single time I streamed, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I would go and look at all the games that came out. There would always be enough games that I could cover the daily quests on Steam, on Hearthstone or Magic Arena later in the year. So it seems like we've gotten more than enough. If anything, I would argue we still very much are in a position where there is far too many there really is far too many games still coming out. Most of the games that I see on a weekly basis are still garbage. So if they reduced it back down to 4,000 a year, and those were all quality good games, I'd still be very happy with that. Like, the truth of the matter is, how many games come out on Steam is a number that is almost completely disconnected from the number of good games that come out on Steam, or come out anywhere. It still really is, you've got maybe at maximum 52 games a year that are going to be good. Like AAA games that everybody should play or would want to play. One a week, maybe two come out the same week, but then another week there's nothing. Honestly, we don't get anywhere close to 52 great games, good games that come out on any platform in a year. We probably get closer to, I would say, 30, maybe 2 a month, spread out amongst many different platforms. So, yeah, I could see a lot less garbage on Steam and be perfectly happy. Right. Next we have a game on Steam called Go All Out, free to play, and it has Zoro Yandere-chan and several other characters from, I guess, maybe indie game developers. Here's Yandere-chan beating up somebody. This looks like a rather polished Smash Bros. Clone, which we really haven't had. Now, the idea that Yandere-chan is in it, when that Yandere simulator hasn't even been finished, and I talked about it last stream, won't ever really be finished, is a bit of a problem, certainly, but something that you can probably ignore for a Smash Brothers collab. Assuming that these game characters were properly licensed, and this isn't just somebody stealing the 3D models. So you have a character here called Zoro, which he looks like he is just somebody's original creation of the character Zoro. And then you have some other characters that I recognize, and a lot of characters that look like they're from video games, but I really wouldn't be able to tell you what video games they're from. This is free to play with online PvP. It has no in-app purchases. Original and guest characters and stages from games and books. Let's see if there's a list here. Not really. Well, I gotta put this on the follow list. This looks like this might actually be a good game. The only thing I can say is let's look at the publisher and see if they've published anything else. Seems like maybe you buy some of the characters with DLC. Doesn't really look like any of the other games. There's a mixed game that the first game they made in 2017 is mixed reviewed, and that's mixed reviewed, and that's mixed reviewed. Alright, so here we have a game that came out January 6th 2019, so this was a year ago, and it's mixed reviewed. So, and also it only had like 12 reviews too, which seems crazy, but it must just play horribly. They were selling it for $9.99, or they still are selling it for $9.99. Combat is clunky and not satisfying, and animation is not very good. Well, that sucks. Do I make the same assumption, or do I assume that maybe they've fixed the free-to-play, fixed it in free-to-play? Well, then why not fix it in the original game? I'll put it on the follow list, I guess, but Unfortunately, for as visually polished as this looks, it seems like it didn't play well. And that would be the one thing you would want in a Smash Bros. Clone, is if you're going to have a limited number of characters, let's face it, you just can't have as many characters as you would as Smash Bros. Will. Like, you just can't dive that deep. You just would need the game to play well. It seems like they didn't make the game to play well. That is a shame. That is a real crying shame. Let's see, it's going to attack with this. Next, we have a game on Steam called Nuclear Arms Race, which looks like it is a low-effort city simulator game. It doesn't look very polished, and it's not zoomed out far enough for that type of game. It's free to play with DLC to support it, online PvP, single player also, third-party account and EULA required, and then a bunch of achievements with just numbers, so probably is just do as much damage as possible. There's a better game where it was called like what was it called? Something Everybody Dies, from the creators of Evolution, where you were sending off nukes, much like the movie War Games. It may have been called War Games, actually. That's a particularly old game simulator, and you weren't really building facilities or places where you were developing nukes, which would make it a slightly different game, but I would probably call that a better game. Right, so there's that one white card I've been trying to play. Do this. So how close can I get? Can't do that. I can do this. I can then decide to attack with everything. So just attack with every card. And then he probably will kill one of my guys, and then that'll probably be fine. TechRaptor has a review here for a game called Super Mash, which looks like it is a store simulator game, or, well, it says nothing but timed minigames with glitches, and I guess that might be what it is. I guess it's kind of like a WarioWare clone with just a whole bunch of little things. They gave it a 4.0. Super Mash is an intriguing concept, but the execution of the several genre mashes you make and play are uninteresting and shallow. Pros, character art and dialogue and cutscenes, fast loading times. Cons are superficial conceptions of game genres, annoying glitches added by design, annoying real glitches, poor communication with the player within mashes. There we go. So, Super Mash, a game I hadn't heard of, is a game I didn't need to hear about. But I guess I am better off knowing than not knowing. I guess we are approaching the point where maybe they stopped bothering to specifically do Game of the Years for 2019 since we're in January, and now we're starting to see just kind of wrap up articles of 2019 that aren't Game of the Year things. At least that seems what Gamma Sutra is doing. I think CES has pretty much happened now, and it doesn't seem like anything super amazing came out of CES, which, okay, that's no big surprise. One of the biggest technologies I think that they're pushing is the idea of doing infrared or wireless powering of devices, which is almost certainly going to cause cancer. It's not a smart move. This is taking forever to win. Oops, missed that, but whatever. Seems like perhaps we've gotten past the point where people are playing really hard, so I'm getting some better victories, easier victories. Perhaps I'm just having a good day because it's Friday. Friday might be the day to play ranked. Yeah, there was an interesting like indoor growing kind of refrigerator that LG was showing off as a concept that maybe if you got that really cheap growing herbs and spices, and let's face it, I imagine people try to grow their own weed in it too, there might be something in that. Ooh, do I want to keep this and then potentially lose? No. So that was kind of interesting, but otherwise it's kind of nothing. The gadgets are done. Computers are pretty much done. Cell phones are pretty much done. People have got what they need, and they really don't need much more. I'm gonna play this because I can bring it back if it dies. Gamma Sutra has another blog here, Steam and Graphs in 2019. So they're fixing graphs that somebody else made. Let's see. Including games with at least 10 reviews and at least 1,000 owners, I analyzed over 7,000 games that came to the following conclusions. 65 is a good number as a best guess. There's a long tail where few reviews lead to many owners. In an estimating revenue, I chose to be pessimistic and ignore these cases, as a large multiplier would result in more revenue, which is never a bad thing. A good range is 30 to 100. I'm not sure what number 30 to 100 of what they're talking about, as that covers the thick area of distribution. I assume this maybe is reviews, while keeping 65 as the mean. The range covers almost every game on the low end, and again, errors would underestimate revenue. Let's see, this one and this one and this one. US price is used, then they're taking up platinum platforms cut, and then VAT, then regional price, and then average discount. Which having to pay a VAT tax is unlikely. So in the end, he comes up with this graph that looks like a leaf of, I guess this is supposed to be days since its release compared to the number of, I can't even read that. So Steam is growing is the subtitle here. Again, this is just going to be a waste of time because these charts are too small. My TV monitor is too far away from my own eyes. I can't read what it's saying with any level of accuracy. I'm not going to attack with that one. Got another chart of estimated 5-year revenue over time with a logarithmic scale, which says that pretty much you kind of do all right, but then this is logarithmic, so you probably aren't doing as well as that looks. Games released over a 5-year revenue threshold. Here you can see a big jump between 2012 and 2014, and then up and up and up. That's probably when a lot of people start gaming on PC. So here, really a blog like this really can only just be something I can say go check out because it's got some graphs. I don't know if I understand them. I can barely read them. So the best I can say is just to move forward. Check out the article yourself if you're interested. I think I can just win here, so I'm just going to attack with everything. Yeah. I've really gotten whammied here with 3 different blogs from Gamma Sutra. Speaking of places I probably should stop listening to, Giant Bomb decided to add a new system to their podcast RSS feed to put on custom ads, as far as I can tell, last week, and that means the Bombcast and the Beastcast just won't download on my RSS feed downloader. It's just not working. I guess I've probably run into this in some other podcast streams too, and just it pretty much means I'm going to be forced into not listening to them, which is kind of fine with me because then that gives me a nice convenient, I don't even have to lift a finger solution to getting away from listening to the Bombcast and the Beastcast and saving potentially a few hours a week. Although that might be a bad thing too because I don't really have a replacement. Like the radio stations I was listening to, they kind of only make so much content. So I may have to seek out new podcasts to combat that. And there never seems to be enough new content podcasts to replace the old podcasts. And I'm still getting cards. I really don't think I'm getting bad cards. I'm just kind of not getting the cards I care about. Let's see, we have a game on Steam here called Orbi Universe, which looks like some really complicated simulation game of some sort. It's definitely not visually polished. Wouldn't be surprised if this actually is Chinese. $8.99, English and French. Alright, yeah, it just seems like this is a half-finished concept of something that would be a board game or a tabletop game of some sort, and would need a lot more visual polish. Like, honestly, if you have a concept for a game like that, you probably should make a tabletop game first, because the amount of visual polish you have to do for a stationary image is considerably less than what you would have to do for a video game. Magic is kind of a great example of that. They pay one artist to do relatively decent art here, but that's kind of it. It's just that one stationary image, and then they'll just put maybe a summoning sickness effect on top of it. We'll put some borders around it to make it look slightly different, but if each of these characters had to be 3D modeled, they have done that with some of them, but not all of them. That would be a lot more work. Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam called Gymcraft Frostborn Wrath. This is some kind of tower defense game, obviously. It's not of any interest. $11.69 English only. Yeah, I just have no interest of ever playing a tower defense game, even if it is slightly well polished. Gaming Sutra has the same article about the expansion pass for Sword and Shield. Next we have a game on Steam called Necro Wars, which doesn't look visually polished enough. Seems like it's a low polygon strategy movement game. Yeah. $7.19 English only. Says it has full audio. Yep. Nothing there. Yep. Again, it's a great example of just, if 90% of all the games I say are just like, oh yeah, this is this, and this, and we've seen it a dozen times before, or hundreds of times before, and it's not worth really playing with. I should have attacked with that also. That was a mistake. Tech Raptor has an article here. The Humble Winter Sale starts the year with some awesome savings. Okay. Of course, these are affiliate links for Tech Raptor, but you could seek out this article. Yeah. I've never had enough money that I thought it was a smart move to buy games from the Humble sales and the Steam sales. Plus I have plenty of games, so it doesn't really make a lot of sense. Next we have a game on Steam called Wall Force, which looks like it's switches between 3D and side platforming, 2.5D platforming. Weird. And it kind of just does look like it's an asset flip game, and it kind of looks like it's all over the place with custom guns for no good reason. This does just feel like it's all over the place as far as its gameplay styles. It's early access, $4.49 discounted, English with third-party EULA, and it's only online PvP. I think there's nothing really there that you could sell the game on. Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam called Gun Tech. I did curate a lot of the games, by the way. I did close a lot of games that were left over from Wednesday. This looks like a flying around asteroids, like bullet hell shooter. This looks a lot like Lander more than even asteroids.
I protect those who cannot protect
this is
themselves.
not something I'd want to play. $9.99 English, no discount.
Our true strength lies in our friendships.
Let's see, put this on the field. Put this on the field. Attack with everything here. Game of Sutra has another article here. Writers share tips for overcoming common hurdles in of mobile game projects. So I guess this is barely in game. There's an EGM article that's just getting reported on for the full story. And then they have pictures of Elsa, so there was some Elsa mobile game mentioned, or they just decided to use pictures of some Elsa Frozen mobile game. Honestly, I have not seen anything that indicates to me there's ever been great writing in the world of mobile games. Let's see. I think we can just kind of win next turn. Maybe. Or we can start the process of winning. Game Master again has a Get a Job. Sucker Punch Productions is looking for a gameplay programmer in Bellevue, Washington. If you're interested in that, I probably should stop listing jobs just because it's wasting time. Maybe there's a phrase I could just develop to say Sucker Punch is hiring, or just quickly say something like that instead of going into more detail, or there's some new video game jobs out there and just mentioning it from that perspective. Alright, so attack here and attack here. Next we have a game on Steam called Jack in Town, which seems to be a low effort asset flip GTA clone, for lack of a better term. English not supported, $1.19, French only. Seems like we're getting some weird French games, which we usually don't get two French games in a week, even, and we've had 3 or 4 of them.
Friendship is the best cure.
Just gonna say no block. Do I want to kill this guy? Get rid of his planeswalker and set him up for victory, for losing. We have a game on Steam here called Grimalkin Solar Defense Force, which looks like a space strategy, real-time strategy game. Looks slightly visually polished, but doesn't look like there's anything here that would interest me. These space games never catch my attention. Early access, 1104, a little too expensive there. English full audio.
You have the heart of a hero.
Alright. So, play this. Play this. If I get Bola Citadel on the field, I would win. But since I don't have it on the field, let's not use health, because we might need that. We've got 7 things on the field right now. And, we could potentially, we could do like Cauldron Familiar, then kill Cauldron Familiar, then bring it back on the field. Could I kill my own guy? That'd be interesting. Yeah, since we've got nothing here, let's see what we can do. Can we kill this guy? Nope, we cannot. But we can kill that. Black, white. He did quite a lot playing his strategy to stymie me, and really failed to succeed. Keep on playing. Alright. Attack, attack, attack. We don't really need to use up our food and show off. We could have. Look at that. I do believe we are ranking up to silver rank 1. Nice. We're on a hot streak. Keep on playing. Next we have a game on Steam that's just a bunch of Asian characters. I have to say, while this is a slightly different animation style, it seems like it's a little softer. It doesn't seem like it has as many lines or as much shading as you normally would have in anime. It doesn't have as much bright colors also as you would see in animes, which makes me think this is probably a Chinese visual novel. That being said, it looks particularly good. I really can't say I hate the visuals of it as I was letting this video play. It is $5.09, which makes it a little too cheap for a visual novel, and it is Chinese. So I can't really say anything more than that, but I would suspect that if there is any good Chinese visual novels out there, this might be one of them. Unfortunately, I can't name it or anything, so you would have to be looking at the screen and reading the name yourself. Now, it would probably be an interesting question about how popular are visual novels in China in the first place. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. I would suspect, since visual novels seem to be extremely popular in Japan and fairly popular in Korea, I'd expect that just general Asians in general, if you can stereotype, probably do appreciate visual novels a lot more than the action-packed experiences that are demanded of Western game players demand. And considering how so many are getting released and made, there's also good indication for that to be accurate too. Moving on, we have a game on Steam called Darkfall Ghost Vigil, which looks like a horror adventure game. It's maybe a little lacking in polish, if any of these images want to load. Man, that is a lot of screenshots. They're not afraid to show off their game. Seems like you probably are going into a haunted place researching it, which we really haven't had a Ghost Hunters-esque type game. And they probably should have something like that. $13.94 is a little too expensive. English full audio. I'm gonna put this on the follow list though. Like the idea of going into a place and being a ghost hunter, and then probably, inevitably, actually seeing the ghost is a different experience than a lot of the other games where you're either in a place because you don't know why, or you're in a place because you would just naturally be there and ghosts appear out of nowhere. So that's a slightly different
wizard.
starting point. Also, if you're a ghost hunter character in the game, that puts you in a different position of how afraid you're going to be or how you would react. Resident Evil 7 is kind of a great example of that. Like, you pretty much just end up forced in the Resident Evil 7 location. Like, you're basically just kidnapped. I can't even remember how the main character does end up there. He's like chasing after his girlfriend. That's a typical way in which these stories start. I'm just gonna double up and make sure we get rid of this planeswalker. Whereas if a ghost hunter had ended up in the same Resident Evil 7 location, or if a member of the Stars team had shown up there, they would act very differently. And some of the DLC actually tells that story. Because you are playing as like a Stars member, I think, in one of the DLC characters, one of the DLC experiences. Moving on, Gamma Sutra has an article here. Hamburg has created a 2.2 million fund to support local game developers. This would be the city in Germany. So Hamburg, Germany, $2.2 million, probably being given, split up between, I would suspect, 1 to 3 companies. But as my extremely limited understanding of the woes in Europe go, I suspect that the government funding the development of video games is probably a pretty smart move, because it's not like there's a lot of other jobs around there, and Europe has already started doing shorter work weeks and things like that. And yeah, it seems like in general Germany is backing away from their banned lists of you can't make Nazi games, which would also help development of games in Germany. Next, we have a game on Steam. I just want to point this out. Hentai versus Furries. Although I would not really call these characters, these asset flip animal characters, furries. First of all, these look more like humans in animal suits from like an amusement park. This really doesn't look like a furry suit that I've ever seen. This is 99 cents, English only, and like clearly still these games are low effort, lewd games that should not really be available for purchase on Steam. Like, anytime you have furries or hentai in the name, it should trigger a second review, and that second review should stop the game from making it onto Steam. Also, and I'm not really going to back away from my opinion here, I still suspect that about once every 2 weeks somebody reviews all the adult games and approves them in batches, but it does seem like in some effort to maybe catch up, they have reviewed and allowed 2 batches this week, which wouldn't be super surprising. Okay, this, and this, and I should win. Man, this is just going great. It'd be superstitious of me to suspect that I get better gameplay on Magic when I upload videos, but boy, does it seem like I'm having a lucky day. Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam called Help the Minotaur, which unfortunately looks like it's just a cheap Chinese puzzle game, and that this seems like it only has 20 mazes in it. Otherwise, it looks like a fine, like MC Escher-esque spin the cube to help the Minotaur get where he needs to go idea. But they want $8.99. There's only 20 puzzles, and it's English only with a third-party EULA, and then achievements with numbers, so it's an achievement game. So, unfortunately, just no visual polish there, no gameplay polish, and no interest in actually putting out a good game. Let's see. This next game is tagged sexual content and nudity, so let me see if we can find a screenshot that is YouTube friendly. Seems like probably the answer to that is sort of no. Here we go. We'll just quickly mention this. We have a game called Happy Engine. It's a lewd anime slide puzzle game with anime girls in bikinis. They want it discounted for 74 cents. Bunch of language supported. Seems like we haven't been seeing a lot of those lately, but one more made it through. I wouldn't be surprised if Steam's approach on a lot of these games is to kind of see if they can just convince the developers to go away instead of outright rejecting them. Perhaps they just delay things and delay things forever and hope that that eventually the developers will just give up. And that might explain why you get the occasional slide puzzle still coming through, is that somebody submitted the game 3, 4, 5, 6 months ago, and they're just sticking with it and emailing and harassing the Steam reps to the point where they said, fine, let's just put it on. I wouldn't even be surprised if there's some kind of weird quotas that are being done. Alright. What do we want? Not gonna get this card. No, because he's just gonna play something and this is gonna go into the graveyard. Gametsu has an article here. Giraffe and Anika for PC launches February 18th. I have not heard of this game. It looks interesting. Playism is taking over the publishing games, which I think Playism publishes. It sounds like it's an adult publisher, but I don't think it actually is. Let's see if we can watch this video and see what this is. In a lot of ways, this might be an asset flip game. It does, perhaps, it looks a lot like a Ghibli-esque RPG, but it very well may just be a adventure game with some mini games. It might not even be much anything more than mini games.
Well, we've got a fight on our
Start
hands.
attacking Jace.
Decisions.
I'm a little mana locked here. Yeah, it seems like there's an adventure minigame, a rhythm minigame, a comics, a dungeons, and collectibles minigame. So it does seem like it is just kind of this combination of things. Giraffe and Annika is on Steam. Yeah, it kind of feels like it probably is a half-finished thing. English, Chinese, Japanese. Maybe it's a Chinese product. Let's see, before we put it on the fall list, let's look at Playism and see what else they've brought out. Like Momodora, Reverie Under the Moonlight, La Mulana. Yeah, they've published some things. Particularly weirder Japanese things. So I'll put this on the follow list and we'll see what kind of reception we get. That was frogified, unfortunately.
Don't test me.
Alright.
Let's think this through.
Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam called Survival Frenzy, which is already mixed. Yep, it looks like a GTA player versus player game. And it has enough reviews to already tell me it's not worth putting on the fall list. Although visually polished, it does look like a kind of interesting PUBG clone. It's free to play with in-app purchases and online PvP, English and Korean. Let's see, high quality designs, but motion got no quality. Also, no player base. It's the first negative review I saw. Alright, let's put that on the field. Oh, this guy's killing me. Here. And let's see. This and this and this. And then we'll just do this just in case. Gamatsu has an article here. Mosaic for PS4, Xbox One, and Switch launches January 23rd. I think we've probably already covered that. Yeah, in the next few weeks we'll start to see more announcements of actual games of interest coming out, I imagine. Could have probably attacked with that too. Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam called Football School, which looks like it's probably a low effort, like mini football simulator type game. $8.99, English only, and they're playing soccer, not American football, just in case. Yeah, nothing there of interest. Guess I could have done 2 damage otherwise. I can just win that way. TechRaptor has their 2019 Game of the Year award. Options were Call of Duty, Control, Death Stranding, Devil May Cry, Fire Emblem, Outer Worlds, RE2, Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice, Slay the Spire, which I don't think came out in 2019, but maybe it came out of early access, and Untitled Goose Game. 5th place they gave to RE2, that's probably low. 4th place Death Stranding, that's probably a little higher. 3rd place is Fire Emblem Three Houses, which I hear is good, but I don't think would, if you had every single video game player ever forced to play Three Houses, I don't think it would make it in 3rd place at Game of the Year. but I guess this is Tech Raptor's list. Second place, Secure Shadows Die Twice. I disagree with that. And then Devil May Cry 5. But a heavy Japanese picks there. Really, not a single game on this list is a Western game from a Western developer for a Western audience. Which probably says something about 2019. RE2 may not look at it at the beginning as a Japanese game, but it totally is a Japanese developer making a game for Japan, at least in part, halfway. Fire Emblem, clearly a Japanese game. Secure Shadows Die Twice, clearly. Devil May Cry, clearly. And yeah, if I go back and look at the list, the kind of Western games, as I would label them, would be Slay Spire, Untitled Goose Game, Outer Worlds, Control, and Call of Duty. And the only thing that maybe deserved to be on that list in comparison was Control. So yeah, it definitely was not a good year for Western developers or Western games as far as 2019 was concerned. Maybe it particularly wasn't a great year for video games in 2019 at all. Oh, he's made me actually run out of cards. Darn it. I actually lost. He actually milled me to death. Oh well, move on. Next we have a game here called Jane Westlake Adventures, The Mystery Chain. And I am not sure if this is a re-release of an older game, or if this is just an older looking game being released now. Honestly, it also kind of feels like this might be kind of like an asset flip game that has just been polished in a way to make it look like it's older, as like an Uncharted game. They want $3.99, and it's English with full audio, 2 achievements. I want to see what this developer has made. Is there other Jane Westlake series? We have Triangle Storm. They have the Hacker Evolution 2019 HD Remaster, which maybe I should own that. I think I own the original, so I don't know if I would want to own the remaster. Crystals of Time wasn't a terrible hidden option. Hacker Evolution, a bunch of hacker games. Okay, so I know this developer, but they really haven't done anything like this before, which makes it kind of intriguing. The idea of a developer who's mostly just made text-based hacking simulator games, trying to make something different, but then also kind of making something that feels a lot like Tomb Raider 2, Tomb Raider 3. I won't go as far as to say it looks like Tomb Raider 1, because that would be really, really low polygon. And we're not really seeing any people, we're not really seeing a lot of running and jumping. This very well might be a experimental project they did, but it does intrigue. If anything, I need to go back and put a lot of these other Hacker Evolution games on my wish list. This came out September 23rd, 2019, and has one review, the Hacker Evolution 2019 Remaster. But that really is a game in particular. It's a remaster of a game that I have memories of playing, so it has kind of that special relevancy to me, so it should be on my wish list, even if it is probably a game that not too many people have played or would want to play. Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam called Pocket Cars, which looks like some RC cars racing, which allows you to have smaller maps in the background, smaller skyboxes, but it doesn't look terrible. It looks like it might actually be a game. Early access, $11.99, English only. I can put that on the follow list pretty easily. We actually have a decent amount of games going to the follow list today. It's not just garbage. Next we have a game on Steam called The Fairy Tale of Death, which seems to be a free-to-play RPG. And it seems to be kind of heavily text and dark screenshot syndrome. It's coming soon, but you can buy the soundtrack. It's English and German. Let's look at this publisher. Yeah, they haven't published anything else. So it's marked as free, but I suspect it's not actually going to be free. And the only thing we can really do is look at this video and see if... Yeah, it seems like it's mostly text with some visual effects on top of it. Yeah, that doesn't look like it's even ambitious enough to be a game worth mentioning, unfortunately. Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam called Omega the Beginning, which Omega would be the last letter in the alphabet, Greek alphabet, not the first. And it looks like it's just a low polygon point and click adventure game. They're selling it episodic as episode 1, but they want $2.99. This is being compared to Dragon Quest and Life is Strange, English, Italian, German, and achievements with numbers. I don't think there's anything here that I would want to play. I don't think I could look at these blocky graphics and a point and click and be happy when I know that so many other point and click adventures have had amazingly good 2D pixel art, and you could have done that at any point. OpenCritic has an article, 7 years after its debut, Kentucky Route Zero will tell its final act this month. So apparently this game, Kentucky Route Zero, has just been episodically been released over 7 years, and that is why I recognize the name more, but also would explain why I've never really had any interest in it if it's been in early access of some sort this whole time. Man, I just need one land. Give me one swamp, and then I could play this, and then I could play this, and this, and this, and this, and we can just keep on going. OpenCritic has another article here. Sea of Thieves has surpassed 10 million lifetime players. I feel like some of these numbers are probably made up at this point. This author, by the way, not wise and smart to have a child in your image. It's also not really a professional image at all. I'm going to become more nitpicky about that, but yeah, you shouldn't have images in public facing images of your children or children in general. Try to respect the privacy of people who can't control their own. Yeah, I don't know if I really believe Sea of Thieves has as many players as they're claiming at this point. Gamma Sutra has an article here, Magic Legends gameplay trailer, a free-to-play multiplayer online action RPG due out in 2020. I don't think this has anything to do with Magic the Gathering. If it does, Magic the Gathering Arena has at least been very bad about mentioning that. It's coming from Perfect World Entertainment and Cryptic Studios, if I can pronounce that right. So yeah, I don't think it has anything to do with Magic the Gathering. I think it's just a Diablo-esque multiplayer RPG, which is fine. but because it's multiplayer, it's also something that I wouldn't cover. And just now I see the beginning of the end, and we've been going 2 hours and 35 minutes, which is, yeah, I'm just not going to break up episodes anymore. They're just going to be 3 or 4 hour episodes that air on the weekends. Like, if anything, feedback has told me I should break up the episodes every 30 minutes, which just doesn't make a lot of sense. And I guess if I was 100% focusing in on if I was 100% focusing on just playing card games, I'd probably break up every single game into its own video. And that still would probably be about 40-minute videos. Oh man, I am totally messed up here. Alright, so we need that and discard that first. But it's going to get harder and harder. I'll have to start discarding this. Gamatsu has an article here. The futuristic retro action platform Infinite Beyond the Mind has been announced for the PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. And pretty much anything being announced for the PS4 and the Xbox One probably will get ported quickly from the to the new consoles. Someone was doing a YouTube video I was watching about how a lot of the games on the Switch are actually Switch U ports, and there's maybe a few games on the Switch that are on the Switch U that haven't been ported over to the Wii U, that haven't been ported over to the Switch. Considering how few people actually bought and enjoyed the Wii U. Yeah, that looks like that's a slightly interesting game. The graphics might make it a harder sell, but it looks fast-paced. TechRaptor has an article here. Exit the Gungeon PC and console release announced. Which I think we kind of already knew that. First half of 2020, probably $15 wherever you're buying it. Finally. So we gotta play this first. Like, can this save the day? Or is it too little too late? Or are they just gonna destroy that character? Alright, well, I need my health back. So I'm gonna attack. Try that. Gamma Sutra has an article. An analyst says Facebook gaming saw a sizable growth in viewers and stream time during 2019. I'm pretty sure Facebook gaming streaming really only started in 2019, so sizable growth is probably a bit of a misnomer. If I was to guess, it went from 0 to, let's say, 100, and that may seem like a lot, but it probably doesn't mean too much. Gamma Sutra also has an article here. Enter the Gungeon has topped 3 million in sales under the last 4 years, which I think that is a decent amount. All right. Let's see. Black. Even if I could play Bola Citadel, I'm probably still gonna lose. Just has to do 1 damage. Next we have a game on Steam called Mythic Ocean, which looks kind of like a Zelda game if it was just all under the ocean, which is interesting. I'm not really sure how much of this is any kind of like fighting or anything. This may just be a swim around and talk to people adventure. So I like the visuals of it. It's $13.49, which is a little too expensive, and it has a third-party EULA. But I'm willing to put this on the follow list and see if people like it. It does visually look different, and a lot of people have fear of being underwater, so you don't see as many underwater games as you probably should. Right. We can attack that with that. We can do that with that. That means I can play bow instead of L, but I would need to, without really taking any life damage, I would need to get a bunch of people on the field. And I don't think that's going to happen. See what could possibly happen. Nothing. Nothing can happen. I'm gonna lose. Alright. Next we have a game on Steam called Shooting Mine, which seems like it's probably a low effort asset flip game. You seem to just be wandering around in space, walking in space, shooting at random things. It does not make any sense. It's $19.99, particularly expensive. English and alleged full audio. These background images don't look anything like it. This looks incredibly low effort as far as the menu goes. Yeah, I don't know if this guy's just teasing me or what. This might be a slight follow-up to previous stories from Tech Raptor. Fantasy Flight Interactive closing down for good. I guess if there was any real question there, it seems like they got like a response telling them, yeah, it's shutting down for good. Also shutting down, although they let one person stay in charge and run the place, is College Humor. Like, they laid off practically everybody, as far as I can tell, at College Humor, and shut the doors. They left one person in charge. Their whole dropout stupid premium service was that they were pushing extremely hard and had really ruined like their YouTube channel, because all you were getting were the small bits of the beginning 5 minutes or the first hour of a 3-hour experience of all their content, and then advertisements for dropout. That really ruined their stuff, and I stopped watching their stuff. I only barely liked College Humor. Anyways, they had like a couple of funny things. Honestly, I found them when they did skits about wearing jorts from like 5 or 6 years ago. I watched those videos. I subscribed for that. Some of their other stuff is fine. Adam Ruins Everything has spun off as his own thing, and I think once Adam left, they probably lost their major talent there. And yeah, they really were turning College Humor into something that seemed like it was almost like a Saturday Night Live where the characters come and go. Unfortunately, that does mean that just like Saturday Night Live, there's a lot of seasons where, and a lot of actors in certain seasons that are just not funny. But I mean, they almost certainly ruined themselves with the whole dropout idea. This whole concept of we're gonna try and get around YouTube and the YouTube adpocalypse by having people pay premium prices, and I don't think anybody would do anything for that. But there is like 6 more months worth of content to drop out, and they're gonna try their best, I imagine, to even try and make a sales pitch that you should stay paying the subscription fee to drop out. But yeah, College Humor is dead, and yeah, for a small-time YouTube content creator, you can take it one of 2 ways. I could either take it to mean this means it's even less viable to be successful on YouTube. It's just that much more difficult. Or perhaps YouTube is once again returning to small content creators and getting away from what were corporate, highly polished products that were trying to steal market share there. But if anything, I would say College Humor has been also one of the major factors. I could speculate, and this would just be speculation. I wouldn't be surprised if some of the people that were friends with or worked around College Humor also worked with Rooster Teeth, which also failed, or also worked with, yeah, I think Rooster Teeth is the Ruby company, which seems to be falling apart too. So this really might just be a industry-wide infection of just bad management in general. And I guess bad management is about the right way to phrase it. Moving on, since that's not super video game related, we have a Gamma Sutra article here. A former Microsoft executive is PlayStation head of global business operations, which I guess they needed that. Now, again, I would put this as a younger, newer team believing that they can do everything better. Until I see some evidence of that, I'm going to be extremely skeptical whether Sony Interactive Entertainment does well or not. But they needed somebody because they had lost all of their talent effectively. So she is a former Microsoft and Dell executive. I've never heard of Veronica Rogers, as far as I can tell, as far as I remember. Yeah, I mean, you could make some major speculations here. If she's in charge of global business operations, she would be the person talking to the Japanese developers. She would be the one either telling them, no, you can't have lewd anime games or not. You could speculate that way, and you could probably apply some assumptions that you would make as far as where her opinions would lie on that stuff. But that's kind of it. Like, we'll just have to see until she actually, if we even hear of any actual action she takes. The other part about being executive or managers, often you don't get much credit in the news, or you only take credit for things that succeed, and then you don't really have to take the blame when things fail. I mean, the ball is hers now, so the question is, will she play with it, or will she fumble it? And that is true for all the Sony people, the new Western Sony people. And then can't really attack with that one. I might Well, I'll attack with that one. Because I've lost either way. Let's see. Gamatsu has an article here. Bookbound Brigade launches January 30th. Not heard of this game. Let's see. Seems to be you go into a book maybe and fight enemies from different stories. Or is it you release creatures from different stories? It's really not showing me much. But here you have like Medusa as like a boss fight. And you have some life and energy. There might be a game here. There might be a game here. Here's a features trailer. Seems like it's a group of people that you have to work together in different formations. That's a bit of a spin. Yeah, that definitely looks different. It looks like maybe each character, maybe these are different books, I can't really tell. Seems like each character might work the group in a different way. Okay. Yeah, they've caught my attention. Let's see. That looks like that might be something good. Meanwhile, I've fallen down to silver tier 1 at the bottom. And I need to just play one white game and then we'll be done for the day. Let's see. Gamatsu has an article. Lingrazer 1 and Lingrazer 2 story trailer is out. So, JRPG games of slightly older style. I would say this is probably late 90s animation style. Maybe they're changing the animation style. See, that's the other thing, is that you just kind of won't ever know when they decide to change their animation style, unless something just becomes super popular, and that's going to be pretty much it. It's like something would have to be super popular as a new animation style to change in a very quick way the way things are drawn in Japan right now. Looks like Lingrazer as a JRPG has a lot of enemies and characters that you fight at the same time. So if we look here, this is showing off the characters. It does seem very busy, very fast. It seems like your character, the main characters, are in charge of armies, and so it does seem like an army type fighting game, which might be a little bit different, might spice some things up. I think Lingrazer, when it comes to Steam, probably will be on the wish list as just yet another JRPG to try and cover. Let's play that and get more health. And this. And then attack. Tech Raptor has an article here. Devil May Cry style change system revealed for Nintendo Switch. They said something would be different. A little something extra was the quote. Let's see. When you will you prioritize speed of defense, swordsmanship, or gunplay? The new style change system allows you to experience action through a number of unique styles, allowing unprecedented variety. Level up the styles and weapons as you see fit and create a playstyle all your own. So it seems like it is almost like a XP level up system for your attack styles. Feels very much like something that would have been in the initial release, but they ran out of time, or they held it back for a Nintendo exclusive because Nintendo asked them to. Would be my only guess there. So yeah, there's I would say something interesting there, but not a lot. Let's go ahead and attack with this. I'm gonna take 1 damage every time I attack, so I need to make sure I make at least 2 health back. TechRaptor has an article here. Click on Hot Guys in Nutaku's Blush Blush Uncut. So this is a gay game, a gay adult game, as Nutaku continues to expand their LGBTQ plus lineup. And so yeah, it does look like it's a clicker game. It doesn't look terrible. You can go and check out the not safe for work images. The art style, I would say, for all Nutaku games, though, it is definitely doing kind of a Western art style more than anything else, and that does kind of change a lot of the response there. Like, I think probably since it is effectively a porn game site, I think you have to jump around quite a bit and just like blondes, brunettes, guys, girls, Asians, Latinos, it's like things like that. You kind of have to just vary up the variety of characters. Plus, since it's animated, then you have to also vary up the art styles. And so yeah, there's a lot of different art. They probably, I would say Nutaku would do best if they hired 2 or 3 other artists that have completely different art styles and had every game as they come out cyclically look visually different, because they kind of do look like it is all the same. It's just copy and pasted. It's probably not copy and pasted characters or anything like that, but it feels like it's the same person drawing everything, and that's not enough variety. And variety probably is the key for adult games, if I was to guess. Moving on, we have a game on Steam here called The White Door, which looks like it's kind of just a simplistic adventure game. Feels like this very much it says Rusty Lakes. There's a Rusty Lake series. I don't think this has anything to do with the Rusty Lake series though. This is probably some name confusion. Yeah, this is the first game they made. They want $3.39 for it. This developer's... Nope. This is the Rusty Lake series. Interesting. So they've snuck out another game in the Rusty Lake series, which always are weird. So I'm going to put this on the follow list. And I'm going to consider putting all of these on the wish list. I think I may even own a lot of these already anyways. Maybe I'm missing Chapter 2 of Escape Paradox, or maybe I don't own Chapter 1. But yeah, I was going to play the Rusty Lake series at some point, and haven't gotten around to it, which I could say for a lot of games. So that is a kind of interesting example of a game series too that is niche enough and not as popular that people might not even have noticed that it came out. Oh man, I'm setting myself up to lose here. I'm setting myself up to lose terribly. Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam, The Artifacts Lost in the Galaxy. I believe this is misspelled. It's ARTIFACTS. This doesn't look visually drawn well enough or to scale. And it kind of just looks like nothing. It does feel like somebody really tried to draw some stuff. Like he's even kind of showing himself drawing some stuff in like Photoshop or something. But yeah, it doesn't look good enough. 99 cents, French again, oddly. That seems weird. Oh man, I cannot do anything. I just can't do anything. I have to hope for Bola Citadel, which I don't have, because I'm playing white deck. I shouldn't have played a ranked game here. Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam here called Pieces of Me Northbound, which seems like it's kind of a dark screenshot syndrome horror tale. Seems to be mostly a low effort thing. $2.99. Bunch of languages. I'm gonna be exceedingly generous and think maybe there's an artistic story being told with minimalistic experience. Although, you know what? If your publisher is Good Enough Gang, that is just like, we're not even gonna try as a name. So for the fact that their publisher is called Good Enough Game alone, I'm not gonna put this on the follow list, which is crazy, certainly, but that's where I'm going with it. So I guess if I block here. Yeah, this is not gonna work. This is not gonna work. Gamatsu has an article here, The Romance of the Three Kingdoms 14. So they made 13 other Romance of the Three Kingdoms game. It has an opening movie. It's a button mashing hack and slash game. Chinese focused, centered around like their famous novel, which, yeah, I think part of the reason why China seems to have only the same 3 great novels mentioned over and over again is because they are so oppressive. They wouldn't let anybody tell a news story or anything similar. One thing I'll at least give for Christianity is that eventually Christianity allowed you to steal some ideas from like the Bible and make some allegories and tell some different things, and you get things like the legend of the Narnia books being slightly inspired by that, and Lord of the Rings probably being inspired by that. Now let's see, do I even want to go ahead and play another game? I think the answer is probably no. Let's see. Second Dinner is hiring. This is the Ben Brode company. They're looking for a senior game designer to work on content and systems for our new game. So they are still kind of in the hiring phase as far as the Marvel card game that they have a contract for, which it certainly is possible that that contract would just not get fulfilled or get pulled out from under them. So we can only really hope that they get that finished. They're looking for a senior game designer and a technical designer. This is in Irvine, Texas. I think it just says Irvine, and the only Irvine I've ever heard of. Nope, it's Irvine, California. Okay. See, moving on. Gamasutra has an article. Get a job. Heart Machine is hiring an animator. That's in Culver City, California. Let's see, we have a game on Steam here called Free Company VR, which seems like a low effort name at the minimum of some kind of VR archery fantasy game experience. As probably really isn't much. If I was to guess, I suspect it probably was the beginnings of something bigger. They want $16.99, which is a little too expensive for a VR game, and yeah, I'm not really seeing anything. I think Free Company probably is supposed to mean that the name of the band of people you're fighting with is called the Free Company, but it probably wouldn't translate to most people that way. It'd probably just sound like it's a free game from a company that gives away free games. TechRaptor has an article here for the Best Evolving Game Award, which, how do you define an evolving game? I guess that's a always online thing. So the options were Final Fantasy XIV, Fortnite, Monster Hunter World, Shovel Knight, Treasure Trove, and Stardew Valley. Shovel Knight not being really online, nor I think Stardew Valley really. So they give Fortnite 3rd place, Shovel Knight Treasure Trove 2nd place, and Monster Hunter World. Seems like they are a little arbitrary also on whether they are giving awards to the top 3 or the top 5. Also, some of these awards, yeah. I wanted to see this article. Game Master has this article. Twitter reveals games that dominated the online chatter. This would be very information. Let's see, the top most talked about games were Fate Grand Order, Fortnite. So, the Fate/Grand Order anime mobile game, I believe. Then Fortnite, which is a mobile game, sorta. Then Final Fantasy, which is another mobile game. Then Identity 5, which I've never heard of. Grand Blue Fantasy, which I believe is a mobile game. Emblem Stars, which I've never heard of. Monster Strike, which I've never heard of. PUBG, which I don't believe is a mobile game. Minecraft, and Smash Brothers. So, you're seeing some major domination on Twitter of mobile games and Japanese games. Really, particularly if you add Super Smash Brothers into that category. Japan was the country that tweeted the most about video games, followed by US, South Korea, Thailand, Brazil, France, Great Britain, Indonesia, Spain, and Philippines. So, yeah, that tells you something, that a lot of these games were not talked about at all by mainstream video game journalism in the West. Like, nobody was talking about Fate Grand Order. Nobody was playing that, as far as I could tell. Like, so if anybody kind of complains about me obsessing about the game I play on my phone, Destiny Child, I'm not super off there. There definitely are some mobile games, some Japanese mobile games that are getting a lot more attention than you might suspect and might be worth a look. And in a lot of cases aren't actually worth playing, or only worth playing for about a week or so, and then you get bored with them and then you move on, which is often my experience with video games, mobile games in particular. Next, we have a game on Steam called Luxar. Now, generally speaking, I would say this looks like a just neon mess of a game, kind of like a Super Meat Boy process. But they've done some kind of amazing visual effects where it feels like you're an amoeba flying around in a 3D environment a lot more. So if the controls are tight on this, and this is well received, I think I'd probably be willing to overlook the fact that the graphics look a little weird and actually play this. Although this still very well might be a frustration experience, at least it's a more visually polished frustration experience than what we've seen in the past. It's $7.99 Luxar. It has a bunch of language. It says has full audio, 8 achievements. Yeah, I think that deserves a follow. There might be something there. Let's see. Tech Raptor also has the Best Expansion DLC award. The options there were Assassin's Creed Odyssey Atlantis. I didn't even know that existed. Destiny 2 Shadowkeep, Final Fantasy Shadowbringers, Monster Hunter World Iceborne, and No Man's Sky. And also, you can see here, the only one they even bothered to review was Iceborne. No Man's Sky Beyond was the reader's choice. Third, they gave to Shadowbringers. If they didn't review these games, how are they giving them awards? It's probably a great reason for me not to give out awards, and why I didn't this year. It's a good reason, good excuse for why I didn't this year. At least it's not the real reason. Certainly, I just didn't feel like doing it or have the time. Second place was No Man's Sky Beyond. Third place was Monster Hunter World Iceborne. Feels like they almost made these categories arbitrarily at the beginning of the year, and then had to retroactively justify giving them out at the end, which is probably somewhat accurate. Let's see, we already talked about the 2020 New Year's messages. Let's see. We have a game here called Me and Myself, which looks like a horror game. What's interesting about this is this, I believe, looks a lot, this might not be the game, but one of these games looks a lot like that Taiwanese game that pissed off China and got review bombed. And so I wouldn't be surprised if it turns out that some of those visual assets got reused or got sold. Yeah, this looks different. This looks like you're a tiny creature running around a Korean place, and you're platforming more than anything else. Which, that's not a terrible thought for a game. It's just kind of not what I thought this was. This did not look like this was a horror. This looked like a horror game, and now I recognize it as a puzzle platformer. Unfortunately, it doesn't support English. It is free though, Chinese only. So this is just a weird Chinese game. So I must be thinking of a different game that maybe I closed. Next we have a game on Steam called Nexoria Dungeon Rogue Heroes, which looks like it's a pixel graphics dungeon crawler game. Seems like it might be turn-based. Yeah, I don't really want to look at those graphics for a long time, and you almost certainly would be playing for a long time. $3.79 bundled together with several other games, English and Russian, although it looks like it's trying to be a Japanese game. Like, I don't even know what the Russian identity as far as games would be, like, because let's face it, if either you're doing a Russian stereotype and it looks like a troll game, or you're doing something maybe like the Metro Exodus series where it's more hardcore, and maybe that would be the closest as far as a style of games from Russian developers that are good games. If anything, the identity of a Russian game is unfortunately bad games in general, low effort troll games. And that's kind of a shame. It's a large amount of people and a large landmass that could have a lot of people trying to really develop something good, and we just don't see that. Next we have a game on Steam called Nostalgarian, which looks like a Super Mario World clone that frankly looks like it's literally just stolen art assets in part from Super Mario World. But generally speaking, this doesn't look to me like an actually good Super Mario World game. It looks super empty as far as a user interface or enemies or just things to do. This is discounted to $1.29. It's English and Turkish. Yeah, I just don't see anything there of interest. I have 4 more games to cover, and then we'll be done for the weekend. We have a game on Steam called Alien Nautics, which is tagged as an RPG violent sci-fi game. And it looks like there might actually be something here, if this is single player. And it seems like you just are playing something sort of like a Space Marine first-person shooter Gears of War clone, Halo type game. Doesn't look terrible. $11.24, single player, but then a third-party account and a third-party EULA, which, no, it's not really worth making a third-party account for this game. Like, this looks fine, but I'm not gonna give my information to somebody to play a Gears of War clone. Next, we have a game on Steam called Fright, which looks like a horror game that might actually be interesting, a more grayscale black and white game, or it might just be an asset flip with kind of nothing in it. Seems like maybe the world shifts around. Maybe there's kind of a puzzle to getting out of places. But yeah, it doesn't really look like there's anything here. It's a very, very empty world. This is $2.99. Again, a bundle. English only. Nope, I don't think so. I think we can safely not put that on the follow list. Next, we have a game on Steam called Underneath. Now, there was a mobile game that I played on my phone several years ago where you would stand on a pillar and enemies would spawn and you would attack them and either try and knock them off or kill them. And it was a simplified kind of like RPG experience where you got to experience and upgraded things. Looking at this, it seems like they've kind of taken that idea, although they failed to even draw a circular column, which seems kind of silly. And I'm not sure that these aren't just walls that stop you from actually knocking people off the edge, and that would be terrible choice. But I guess would also stop you from falling off the edge, which was a problem. Also, the one I was playing on my phone, you had a dash move where you could easily knock yourself run off the edge. This is $5.59, English only. Do I want this, or is this just not visually polished enough? The concept does seem to be improved based on the mobile game I played, but not by enough. And the visual polish does seem like it is still just kind of nothing. And frankly, a game like this that is so simple probably would be better played on a cell phone than on Steam. So yeah, that doesn't need to be on the follow list. Next, we have this game that's a bunch of Asian characters and then Paranormal HK, which this looks to me like this is a somewhat visually polished horror game. And I don't think this is the game I was thinking of either. Maybe I looked at that game and decided it wasn't worth it. Yeah, this looks really good, and it is mostly positive. It's $11.69 as a horror game. Oh yes, some of this does totally look like elements from that other game. I think it was called Mother or something, but not all of it. So I imagine what it is that some of this stuff is probably just Asian. Like, you go into an average Asian house and you see this. I don't know what this is, but that I might be attributing some art palettes, some designs, some things that would just be considered normal as meaning something more than they do. Like this might just be a standard funeral shrine in Asian countries. This might just be a standard desk in Asian countries and poster. Anyways, this game is $11.69. It's English and Chinese and Japanese with 6 achievements and full audio on the Chinese. So this actually looks like a good Chinese game. So I'm going to put it on the fall list. Honestly, I don't even really need to put it on the fall list. I guess the only real question there is, am I blacklisting all Chinese companies just because? And that seems like that would be an unfair thing. So let's just put it on the wish list. This is probably a game that would be at the very bottom of the wish list, but yeah, I'll check it out. It looks good. I don't know how many horror games in general I want to play. So that brings me to the Humble Bundle store. So let's see if there's any new bundles. The bundle choice thing is still going on, but that's not really a Humble Bundle as far as I'm concerned. There's a Python and Machine Learning Books bundle. I am more and more coming under the opinion that Python is something that you really should not learn first. Or maybe you learn it first and then you forget it for C++, because with all the embedded programming I've been doing lately, C++ seems to really still be the major software to use as far as programming. Hey, we got someone on the chat just as I'm about to leaving. Level by Level Gaming, how are you? Are the set standards on how these games are priced? How does a company come up with a number like $11.69? No, as far as I understand, there's no set standard as far as the price of a game on Steam. But here's where I imagine you get $11.69. Steam and most payment processors take a bare minimum of about 30 cents plus 3% of the total sales price. And then often they might take another 3 cents for some transaction fee also. So if you're selling something for $11, that would be 30 cents plus then 33 more cents, which then would, if you add that to $11.69, that you have about a 7 cents difference there if you subtract it, not add it. So yeah, 30 cents plus another 33 cents would be 63 cents. So at that point, if they want to make $11 profit, they then would start moving up the price to counter that. Every time you move up the price, you have to rerun the calculation, and you get it something like 69 cents. There's probably some psychology studies out there that 60 something ending in 69 sells a little bit better than something that ends in 70. It feels like it's less money. It probably catches some people. There definitely are some lewd games out there that clearly as a joke just do sell their games at 69 cents to do a lewd joke. Also, the price is very well affected by what price your country is in. So if the game developer is in, say, Ukraine, and they're translating their $20 game that they sell in Ukraine for $20 into US dollars, maybe that ends up being something closer to $11.69. The Valve, the owner of Steam, is really, really libertarian in their policies and the way they think. Libertarians are basically free capitalism with no real regulation or limitation. It's a crazy economic theory to follow, but it's Republicans to the extreme often compared to in the United States. It's just like free market will solve everything with no regulation whatsoever, and it's totally proven to be a dumb concept that doesn't work, but people that are libertarians don't believe that, because the free market's been going for 200 years in America, and America's not in the best economic shape compared to other countries. But Valve is very libertarian. They're very hands-off on the price, so they can set whatever price they will. They seem to have some red flags on if you set it above a certain price, they probably would come back and ask you some questions and challenge you on the price. But I have seen games and software for $999.99. I may have even seen something for $9,999.99. And the bare minimum price, which they do regulate, is, I believe, 49 cents. Maybe it's 69 cents for a game. So if the bare minimum is 69 cents and they just wanted to add $11 on top of that so that they could then discount it later to 69 cents and make it look like they've taken $11 off of something that really is worth $11, that might be a factor too. Or maybe they want to sell it for $1.69 and then take off $10. So the numbers are made up, frankly. And when you balance that off with the fact that there is an extremely large amount of games on Steam that just kind of never sell anything, get 5-6 units sold at most. Some games I'm sure have been on Steam for decades and have never sold even a single unit. So yeah, that's kind of the answer to the price, to the things. So that moves me further to my Twitter feed, and I should have been scrolling down as I was talking there, but I wasn't. So I'm gonna look and see what else has come out in the last couple of hours. Apparently, according to Gamma Sutra, we have an article about China tightening down its regulation on video games even more. Let's see. Twitter Gaming is tweeting some gibberish. Let's see. Canceling plans is okay. Choosing your starter is okay. Defeating all the gym leaders is okay. Catching them all is okay. Do what you need to cope. And that was like an hour ago. And then 3 hours ago, canceling plans is okay. Being resurrected by a ghost is okay. Taking down minions of darkness is okay. Unhaunting the moon is okay. To do what you need to go. This must be some kind of Twitter trend that I don't understand. That's just going on right now, because that doesn't make any sense at all. Let's see, Level by Level Gaming says, "Oh, that makes sense. Thank you. You're welcome." Let's see. We have Rock, Paper, Scissors Simulator coming out on Steam. That's probably not a game worth really mentioning. Tokyo Mirage Sessions has a battle trailer from Gamatsu. If you're interested in that, I'll skip over that. We are less than a week away from the new expansion of Magic Arena, or Magic the Gathering. RetroArch 1.8.3 will contain quite the punch for PSP users, although it's pretty hard at this point, I think, to get a PSP in a decent price. I feel like the demand for PSP as just parts will stay extremely high for quite a long time, considering how long the PSP has been actively developed for. So there's never really going to be a good point, I think, to get a PSP by the time they run out of inventory, it'll probably be 5 to 10 years from now. Meanwhile, if you were going to get a cheap used handheld system, you probably would be better at getting like a 2DS Lite or 3DS Lite used. That would make a lot more sense. Yeah, I'm still just scrolling down my Twitter feed. Apparently, Pokemon Go, according to an analyst, made $894 million in revenue in 2019. Let's see. It's a game called Eterno Blade 2 that has a demo out on Xbox Live. Right, and I think that's all the new things. So Gamma Sutra has an article here. There's a report China to further regulate online games and streaming to curb addiction. No doubt, like China is just going to keep on cracking down and keep on cracking down. Their excuses to control their government, their citizens, will just continue to happen, and until it's to the point where nothing has really changed and it will just be easier to bootleg things. By the way, the Switch that is being sold in China by Tencent will also be locked down to a special Chinese-only marketplace. So if you bought a Switch in China and then imported games that weren't available in China, they still won't play. So you'd have to hack it, which I imagine, again, piracy is exactly what's going to happen because the regulations are so stringent. And in one way, it kind of needs to be that stringent because there is just way too much garbage Chinese games being developed. But in the other way, there's just a lot of stick being used and not enough carrot. So no Chinese developer is really being encouraged to make good AAA games or do any kind of quality at all. Moving on, we have this game Bullying Steel Prefix, which I have seen this game before. So apparently this came out of early access and it's English and Russian. It kind of looked interesting. You're playing as like this robot fighting other robots, but it mostly looked like an asset flip. And see, when you're looking at all these screenshots, there's just no people, no UI, nothing. It's just assets, just places. Let's see, we really don't need to talk too much about this. We have a game called Drunken Wrestlers. This obviously is a low effort. I call this almost like a prototype more than a finished game. It's free, so I guess the price is right. English, Russian. Excuse me. Almost on you. We have a game called Rock, Paper, Scissors Simulator, which clearly again is a low effort asset flip garbage game. This time they want 59 cents. English only, full audio. Yeah. No reason why you'd want to play that. And also that looked like it was in VR, but did not have VR support. So take that for whatever it matters. Next we have a game called Coloring Game, which is just a low effort coloring game with a fairly certain stolen art assets in this case. Like, I don't think you're going to get a grumpy cat as the Death Stranding character and have the license in place. Yeah. I think there's some shenanigans going here. This is free to play with a bunch of languages and then some DLC that seems to be not available yet. I don't know if anybody actually likes these kinds of games, and even if you did like them, I'm fairly certain you'd play them on your phone, not on a Steam PC. Let's see. Level by Level Gaming says, I have all my old PSPs broken and all. Customized mine early in the game and repaired screens and such on them for people for a while. I guess it's a good thing I have lots of parts lying around. Yeah, I imagine that's what's going to happen, is that people who liked the PSP, who played on the PSP, are going to have a lot of games that they still want to play on the PSP, and they're going to want those devices repaired, and they're going to want the parts. And particularly in Japan, I imagine that there will be just PSP parts sold at a high premium for the next decade, where the PSP was super, super successful. I imagine at some point you might run into a problem of finding a replacement batteries, but that there's probably going to be a secondary market to just make replacement batteries too. I dealt with PSPs for a brief time, of broken ones being sent into an IT shop for no good reason, and either I could not tell that the batteries were supposed to be as wide as they were, and I don't think they were, or nearly all the batteries had been expanded and outgassed and kind of broken. So I was throwing away batteries left and right, and I'm not sure in retrospect whether I was throwing away good batteries or not, but I really didn't care either, because it was I was there to do an IT job, and they were giving me tasks that were not really IT related. Moving on, we have a game called When I Was Young, which looks like it is a pixel art graphics game, but it's probably like a story-based adventure with very little experience. It's like trying to tell a Vietnam story, and I guess we probably have hit a point where telling a Vietnam story in a video game format might be interesting, but I don't think anybody really wants to talk about Vietnam in the United States. This is English and Russian, so it's probably a Russian troll. Like, I don't think anybody in Vietnam wants to talk about it. I don't think anybody who's making video games thinks of Vietnam as a good location to set your game in, so I mean, people just want to forget about it. Here's the game Eterno Blade 2, which I've never heard of. It's from P-Cube Limited. I do know them. So, I wonder if that came to PC, or if that's just like a really old game getting re-released. It's probably a really old game getting re-released. Twitter Gaming tweeted yet another nonsense tweet. This must be something that's trending right now. Terry Kavanaugh has released the source code for VVVVV on GitHub, which, okay. If you're interested in what that game looks like, it looks like this, so I don't think it's a big issue to release the source code for that. NBC News was retweeted. High school students across the country are hoping to turn their love of video games into money for college. Like, the shenanigans there are very large, because I am fairly certain that colleges will start offering esports scholarships, but colleges have failed in at least the last generation, if not the last two generations, to actually give you any value in your education. More and more people with college degrees are working jobs that should be for people who don't have college degrees. People with college degrees are not getting paid enough. That they effectively are in this federal student loan debt that can never be gotten rid of through bankruptcy or any other way. You have to effectively fake your death. Yeah, that's about it. Fake your death to get away from student loan debt. And then they have these worthless degrees. So the fear I have is, yeah, you would bring in kids in particular that are not in the right mindset and not intelligent enough And this has been my problem with almost all sports in colleges. It's like colleges really shouldn't have any kind of sports because it's there for education and work, and an insignificantly small amount of people who get in on a basketball scholarship are actually going to be professional basketball players. So yeah, esports scholarships will get the wrong kids at the wrong time into the wrong colleges to get the wrong degree plans that will then end up with them in debt or just wasting their life. Even if they get scholarships that's a full ride and it doesn't cost them anything, which is never the case. They usually charge you for books. They usually charge you for lodging, something. It even if it costs you nothing, it would still cost you time, and time is definitely the most valuable thing in a person's life that you never get back, and kids and young people don't realize is anywhere as valuable as it actually is. Level by Level Gaming responded to what I was talking about. Yes, they all bulge eventually. I had them pop the back cover off because they expanded so much. Yeah, that was my understanding too, is that the batteries on them were just badly designed and bulged. Level by Level Gaming also said earlier, never had the Vita and just got a Switch. Haven't played the Switch yet. Yep, I'm thinking about getting a Switch to play a few Nintendo games and then giving it away to a kid after that as like a gift. Let's see. And I keep going back to my Twitter feed and we keep getting bits of news. So we're having a hard time wrapping up, but that's kind of fine too. Well, let's get everything done today and have a little less to do Monday. Gamma Sutra has an article here. Xbox won't kick off Series X, or the Xbox X as I'm still going to call it, generation with next-gen exclusives, which is fine by me. I don't think that's a terrible idea. But what I guess this really would boil down to is it would be up to the third-party developers who are making up the vast majority of the games for the Xbox, whether they want to support the old versions or the old consoles. And at a certain point, you will start to see some developers going, nah, let's not make it so it runs on the Xbox One. Let's make it just run on the Series X. But it's nice to hear Microsoft say, no, we're not going to force any of our partners or any of our in-house developers to make games as a system seller exclusive. On the other hand, that means they won't have any real system seller exclusives, which they may be fine with. It may be just so expensive, or they may have so few units available when it was released that it very well might be that the Series X is the unit that sells 1 out of 100, and then there's 100 Xbox X Pro, Xbox One Pros, and Xbox One S's and Xbox Ones in general that they're not called Xbox One Pros, they're called Xbox One X's. Yep. There may just be so many of the cheaper units still available that next Christmas there may still be a lot of Xbox Ones still being sold. Anyways, we have a game on Steam called Dusk Warlocks, which looks like it's a player versus player mobile game that's been ported. A little low polygon. It looks like you're just in kind of a small area fighting each other and you're not doing anything else. It's $4.49. It's online PvP, so I wouldn't cover that ever. And yeah, that's going to be it for the stream. Thanks for coming by and talking to me, Level by Level Gaming. I've been doing this for a while, so I'm going to wrap up. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me even further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.